Hello and welcome to this very special edition on Money Control. This is an effort to bring the best of the legendary investor Rakesh Jhunjhunwala. And I have with me someone very special who himself is a legendary investor and has been up close and personal with Rakesh Jhunjhunwala, a great friend of Rakesh Jhunjhunwala, Ramesh Damani. Ramesh, thank you so much for taking time out today for this conversation. I mean, what a great man. Rakesh has been a legendary investor, and what he has accomplished in 30, 40 years is really no mean thing. Tell me first about the first meeting you ever had with him. How did you come in contact with him? I know that you started off as a broker. He was a broker as well. And those were very different times. It was a very small, close-knit community. How did you get in touch with him? What was your first impression of him?
Sure, Mahalakshmi, it'd be a pleasure to talk to you about my dear friend Rakesh. Let me just put it in perspective for you first. I think there are some dates that we always remember. You know, October 31st, 1984, if you're old enough, the day Mrs. Gandhi passed away. 9/11, the day the Twin Towers went down. I think all of us associated with the capital markets will remember August 14, 2022, because that's the day one of the icons who held the capital markets together in India passed away. So it has been a momentous feeling, as you correctly pointed out in your introduction. And my introduction to him was many years back in 89, 90, when he used to be in the ring of the BSE. That time it was a physical outprice system. And a common friend of ours, Rakesh Damani, introduced us together. And since 89 to 2022, we've been in constant touch, friends, traveled together, drank together, had fun together. So it's been an extraordinarily long journey and extraordinarily profitable and insightful one for me.
So was it just by accident? You'd come back from the US and this was soon after that, right?
Yeah, I was lucky enough. I mean, it so happened the first 3-4 people I met are all basically legends of the street. For example, I met Chandrakant Sampath Bhai, I met Rakesh Damani, and I met Rakesh Jhunjhunwala. What are the odds of that happening? That the first 3 people you meet, all 3 are basically legends in the market.
Absolutely, absolutely. And so are you.
I take the reflected glory. I'm happy. That's good.
Oh, no, not at all. So you have seen Rakesh over all these years. Is there a difference? Did you see in the way he approached markets from that time in the 90s to what he has been over the last few years? Because my understanding is he himself evolved as an investor. I'm sure everybody evolves as an investor, but initially he was a lot more on the short side. It is inconceivable if you look at his track record or trading in the first 10 years is vastly different from what he has done in the last 10 years.
I mean, this is a nuanced answer. You'll have to put it in perspective. But let me first put his record in perspective, Mahalakshmi, just so that your audience can understand the scale of his accomplishment. As is commonly known, he came to the stock market with 5,000 rupees. If you translate that into dollars, it was $500 at that time in 1987. And by the time he passed away yesterday, his worth was something like $4 billion, or about 28,000 crores. Now, you can do a CAGR of that over the last 35 years, and it comes to 54% CAGR, which is extraordinary. And it's all been done in the stock market. It's not been done through private fees, carry, arbitrage. It's all been done through compounding his returns in the stock market. Now, those of you who are cricket fans, and there's everyone a cricket fan in India, one of the most hallowed records in cricket is Don Bradman's record of 99.94 in test match, which many people believe will never be broken. I'll have to wager to you that a pure investor compounding his wealth at 54% for 30 years is a record that will stand the test of times. So he has definitely evolved as an investor, no question about it. But the compounding takes care of all the highs and lows that he had. I think his big break in terms of moving him into the super league of investors, if you will, came in the 2003 bull market. By that time, he was maybe 15 years into the market. He had made some money in Madhu Danwate's budget. He had made a little bit of money in tech, but not as much as other people made in the tech. But in 2003, to take the cricket analogy further, instead of seeing a ball coming at him, he saw a football coming at him. He realized the new bull market was about to come. And as you may remember, he famously published an article in the Economic Times, called it the coming bull market in India. And the index went from 4,000 to 12,000 or 20,000, I think, over the next 5 years. And his three picks at that time, Titan, Crystal, and Lupin, all became almost 100 baggers over the time and kind of defined his portfolio. So I think his investment styles have changed, no doubt, between 1990s and 2020. But his breakout year was probably 2003. And his breakout picks were, of course, well known: Titan, Lupin, and Crystal. Titan, of course, he still owns 5% of the company and has been one of the great stock picks in India over the last 30 years or so.
Ramesh, 2003 was an important year, not only for Rakesh, even for markets, in a sense that, till 2003, if you looked at the entire markets, the theory of mean reversion worked, because you always went back. You went higher only to go back, fall back. But from 2003, that really broke, and anybody who was betting on mean reversion after that obviously repented. Was there a huge style difference thereafter? Or am I confusing that with Rakesh the trader and Rakesh the investor?
No, I think the thing that I've interviewed him many times, Mahalakshmi, as you're well aware, and I've interviewed many who I consider the other great investors out of India. Maybe Vinod Sethi, maybe R.K. Damani, a lot of these investors of India. And one thing I realized that they all have in common, other than the fact that they're very passionate about the stock market, is that they were always bullish on India. I mean,
right.
If you look at what has happened between 1990 and 2020, we've been through any number of crises. We've had tsunamis, we've had Kargil, we had a global financial crisis, we had COVID. But through this all, they've always retained their bullishness. And that forms a basic core philosophy of the portfolio. Remain invested, bet on Indian businesses, bet on Indian promoters, and compounding will create the wealth. Prior to the 1990s, through the Harshad Mehta and the Ketan Parekh, the belief was that always, you manipulate the price of the stock. When it goes up, then you give it to UTI or LIC to buy. You make your money and you cash out. Very few of those early operators believed in the power of a business to deliver returns. I think Rakesh was one of the first people to impress upon us the importance of finding a great business and the importance of long-term investing and believing with the promoters. Now, he and the other people have totally different ways of looking at the market. They pick different stocks. It's not that they all pick the same stocks, but the results are extraordinary of basic belief in the business. But the idea of the belief in the business came to them from belief in the India opportunity or being bullish on India. So I think that is the extraordinary change that they heralded. Before that, you're right, there was some mean reversion, there's a bit of manipulation going on in the market. But at the forefront of these guys who came into the market very close around 85, Nimesh Shah, R.K. Damani, Rakesh Jhunjhunwala, Durgesh Shah, all of them had one common belief, that the business is very important. And they got the timing right, because from 87, I think the index has consistently headed higher. So I think they were among the forefront who understood that the backwaters that Dalal Street was known as was over and a new era was dawning. And clearly, at some point, the market discounts the future. For example, in 84, when Rajiv Gandhi had this plenary session in Mumbai, it discounted the telecom revolution, then liberalization that happened. So many things, the market is ahead of it. And like the market, I think Rakesh was one guy who had the extraordinary ability to see around corners. And I think in many ways, I think someone said in tribute to him that he was the ultimate dreamer. And he dreamt of an India that we are all seeing happening and unfolding now, as you go from what was the third world economy in 1984 to perhaps the third largest economy in a few years. I think Rakesh kind of saw that.
Now, describe Rakesh the trader, because in the initial years, when you have no capital, you come with very little capital. Of course, he's also said in many interviews, and we've also chronicled that in Money Control, that initially he was willing to pay an 18% interest rate and a 24% interest rate when money was already costly. But he had that confidence and conviction that he could make that kind of money to be able to service that kind of high cost debt. So obviously, a lot had to come through trading, isn't it? Because you don't start off as a great investor to make a lot of money. You have to create that pool of capital, and the fountain of capital really comes from trading.
Yes and no. In his case, you're right. You're right. I think one of the first trades he did, which he often used to talk about, was he bought Tata Power, and he realized the dividend yield on that share was less than the cost of capital for him borrowing the money. So he borrowed the money, bought the shares, got the dividend, repaid the interest. The stock went up, so he did well for himself. But that was a very calculative trade in the sense that your cost of borrowing was less than the dividend yield in the shares. It was a brilliant trade in that sense. In his early years, he used to trade a lot in Calcutta Stock Exchange. At that time, the Lion Stock Exchange was a fairly active market. It's pretty much defunct now. So a lot of I think the margin requirements are a bit more lax in those era, and trading was a bit smoother. So a lot of his early years, he spent trading in Calcutta. While he's made obviously 90% of his fortune through investing now, I think the joy and the kick that trading gave him is hard to replace, as he would say himself. It's like, putting a kid in a candy store. He just loved the thrill and the excitement of building a leverage position, talking about it in the evening, being bullish about his positions opposed to someone else's positions, and following that. And he often said to me, as you correctly pointed out, that his initial money was made in trading, and only in the later 2000, 2003, he converted into investing, because investing is not a zero-sum game like trading, where someone makes money, someone loses money. So it's ultimately a very hard way to make a living consistently. And to make truly wealth, he understood very early on that you need big blocks of stock that are publicly traded. So he kind of understood that. But you're absolutely right. Trading was his passion, his love. He really got a kick out of doing it. And but I think the initial money was made in trading, but the serious money was made in investing.
Right. And what made him an extraordinary trader, Ramesh? Was it? I mean, there are so many aspects to trading. Of course, in this business, we know that it is part luck and part skill. But let's keep that aside. Just focusing on the skill part, was it agility? Was it the ability to pick the right trades? Was it incredible amount of discipline? Was it some level of aggression where you are sort of really willing to stretch it and then hope that it'll pay off? What was it that made him an extraordinary trader?
I found there were 2 or 3 things that really helped him, Mahalakshmi. The first was that he had an almost uncanny ability to predict when a bull market is beginning. I've seen him pick, the 89 bull market and bear market, the 2000 tech market, the 2003 market, 2008 market. And also, when we bottomed out at COVID, I mean, he told us on a con call with his friends that a new bull market has begun. It seemed the most skewed, how do you come up with that in the middle of COVID, when people are scared of their lives? How do you even have the guts to say a new bull market had come? And he said that, and we all saw the market double in the next year or so.
Correct.
So to be a trader, you have to have an extraordinary ability to understand where the market is going. And I think that was a God-given ability he had, that you're able to understand that a new bull market is gone, so you need to go long, or the market is overvalued and you need to go short. That was, I think, an enormous help to him at that point. The second thing, of course, is that these guys are beasts of the market. Mahalakshmi, Rakesh was 24/7 in the market. He'd go in the morning for a walk and discuss markets. He'd come to the ring or and discuss markets. He would have lunch and discuss markets. He'd go on drinks and discuss markets. Trading is an obsession. It cannot be done in an intellectual manner. You're required to be constantly 24/7 focused. And he was 24/7 focused on money. He often used to tell his friends over a glass of drink or over, well, he really had coffee, but maybe over pan, that since he grew up, since he was 5 years old or 10 years old, or whenever the age he grew up, he said he had only one desire, that was to earn money, and earn money just for the sake of earning money. Not because, he wanted to buy things with it or an expensive car. He just liked the idea of the zeros in his bank balance. And the third thing that distinguishes a good trader and a great trader is your ability to take losses. If your trade goes against you, you need to square up the trade and move on to the next trade. A lot of traders cannot do that. They're so convinced of their point of view and they believe they're right and the market is wrong. But that belongs in the realm of investing, not in the realm of trading. And he's one of those rare people, Mahalakshmi, to do trading and investing. These are completely different sciences. I, for example, invest. I get weak knee to the eye of trading. The idea of making losses doesn't appeal to me. But he could take losses, move out. The next day, he would be over the loss and move on to the next trade. So the ability to take losses, I think, distinguished him as not only a great investor, but also as a great trader in his time.
And temperamentally, how did you see him? I mean, I'm sure you were privy to a lot of his trades and ups and downs and all of that. How would he cope? I mean, if there was a time his trading account was not looking too good, would it affect him badly? Could he still keep his rationality? How was it? Or is it just like, every time it is different? It's just that you're in there for a long haul and you shrug it off and move forward. What was it like for him?
Like any competitive person, he didn't like to lose money, but he could handle it. I don't think there was everyone used to accuse him in his early years of being a reckless trader, very speculative oriented. But I never think he took a risk that he could not bear the loss of. His word was his bond. So whatever the debit balance came from the broker, he would always honor the commitment the next day. So all those people who said that he was reckless or perhaps too much of speculation, or perhaps misunderstands what he's doing. And he never got to the point that he told his broker, oh, I'll pay you in 2 days, I'll pay you in a week. His word was his bond. He would always pay his bond. While he didn't like to lose money, like nobody of us likes to lose money, he was very, he knew it was just, you're counting chips, Sometimes 2 chips are taken away, sometimes 4 chips are added. And as long as at the end of the day, you have more chips than when you started, you're okay. And I think, he did that, fairly successfully.
Tell me the qualities about Rakesh that really stand out for you.
I'll tell you the negative one first, because we all, as a friend circle, we feel bad about it, that, he lived life on adrenaline, on pushing himself, on being high on life. And as a result, I think he neglected his health, Mahalakshmi. And I think a lot of his family friends, his family, his doctors, all told him that, you need to take care of your health, so that, I think sometimes the trading and the success came at the cost of his health. He was so focused on making money and, being the best and, getting it right that, unfortunately, that is the downside of that, the dark side of his success. And, till today, as a group of friends, I mean, just to be poignant for a moment, we feel really bad that he was 62, the age where you enter the fall of your life. You look forward to your children getting married, retirement, so many things. And we feel really robbed himself of that thing in life. So I would
think 30 years of, at least another 30 years of great investment success.
Yeah, great investment successes, enjoying your children, enjoying your grandchildren, watching your daughter grow up. I mean, as a grandfather myself, what is greater joy in this world out there? But, I think maybe that's the reason for his success, because he was so focused on what he was doing, Mahalakshmi. Among his good qualities, I mean, I tell you, there's a saying on Wall Street, Mahalakshmi, that if you want a friend, get a dog, because no one is your friend on Wall Street. Everyone is looking out for themselves. What I found extraordinary about the group of people that I met on the last street, whether it was Rakesh Jhunjhunwala, Ramesh Damani, Chandrakant Sampath, Nimesh Bhai, Durgesh Bhai, whoever I met out there, they were so open with their ideas. I mean, Rakesh wore his trading book on his sleeve. If you knew him and asked him, "Seth, kya lagta hai?" He will say, "Ramesh, I think buy SBI," or "Ramesh, I think buy ACC," or whatever he was bullish at the current time or bearish at the current time. He was an open book. It's extraordinary. Here's a man who runs a, trading book, a prop book, an investment book, but open. So one day I asked them, I said, how is it that Wall Street is so secretive and you guys are so open? I mean, anyone who knows him and asks him with respectfully, he would tell them what he was doing. And there was always the unvarnished truth. There was never any bullshit, never any hiding about it. And I think the way they explained it to me is that, Ramesh, there's a river flowing ahead of us, the river being symbolically Dalal Street. And he says that if I take up 4 buckets of water and you take up 2 buckets of water, there'll be still enough water left in the river. So what does it matter whether you make money or I make money? We both make money in the market. That's the kind of rarefied thinking that these guys brought to the street. And, I was a young man when I knew them. I didn't know my front from my behind in '89. And the extraordinary, sometimes holding a hand, sometimes, almost doing a trade for you, or sometimes when you came up with an idea, backing up the idea, saying, okay, you like the idea, I'm going to buy 50,000 shares of that, Ramesh, just to, show you that I believe in you. Extraordinary. I mean, the kind of generosity that they had with their ideas and the intellect, really sets them apart.
Like you also pointed to, I think one thing that is really important and most large, big, successful investors have demonstrated is independence of thought, independence in terms of how you think about it and where you lay your conviction, right? Did he use any one particular person or people as a sounding board? From where would he draw his conviction, apart from the fact that I'm sure he was very, very rigorous with research and so on? But still, that last mile before you execute, you need to make sure that you have eliminated risk to the extent that you know what you're getting into. He always talked about Rakesh Damani as his guru, but in terms of just vetting his own investments, was there anyone he truly trusted, or was he always allowing people to question his investments? That was his way of clearing his mind. What was the process like?
Well, there are two parts to it. A lot of people assume that there's a coterie in the stock market, for example, that, they all buy the shares and then it goes up and, they all kind of get out together. And it's absolute utter nonsense, because I've known these people for 30 years. And if you look at the portfolios of, say, the two contemporaries who are, the top of the class, R.K. Damani and Rakesh Jhunjhunwala, there's a completely different set of stocks. What does R.K. Damani's portfolio have in common? He bets on known promoters. He bets on MNC companies. He has examples of stakes in VST, Nestle, HDFC Bank, and the like. What does Rakesh have? He bet on Indian promoters. He didn't want to bet on MNC promoters. He hardly had any MNC stocks out there. He bet on the Lupins, the Crystals, the local entrepreneurs, and he was always, gung-ho about their prosperity. Now, well, of course, Rakesh had a lot of research. He read a lot. He thought a lot. So clearly but there's this paraphrase that he would always use to explain himself, sometimes in humor, sometimes in seriousness. He would say, I invest first and investigate later. So, for example, he would tell the story of one of his most famous investments, Titan. Was it a well-documented research effort before he invested? I actually don't think so. I think the way the story goes, from what I understand, Mahalakshmi, is that one fine day in 2003, his broker called him and said, Rakesh, I have, 10 lakh shares of Titan that someone wants to sell. And if you buy 10 lakh, the price will be 40. If you buy 20 lakhs, the price will be 38. And if you buy 50 lakhs, the price will be 36. So Rakesh, he's obviously well-read, understood that, at 40, the market cap was 300 crores or something like that. And it's a great brand name. And nothing is worth, 200 crores. It's probably worth more than that. So he bought the first 10, 20 lakh shares just on an instinct. Then he went and went management, from what I understand. And then he started following the company. And then as the story unfolded over the next few years, he kept adding to his position. So that's the extraordinary part. He first invested, then we investigated. Then when he was convinced, he added to his position. So this is the folklore has it that, he may have, bought Titan after studying or some inside information or some particular knowledge that no one had. But that's probably untrue. He bought it best. Broker had a lot. He came to him, luckily. He could have gone to somebody else. He came to Rakesh. Rakesh closed the lot. Okay. Then he went to management, and then he got convinced. And then he bought almost 5-7% of the company. So sometimes truth is stranger than fiction.
And how hard is that? I mean, to buy the same stock, adding to that position at higher and higher prices.
Extraordinarily hard. I do that sometimes, and generally I get mud on my face, Mahalakshmi. It is extraordinarily hard to do, because at the moment of the highest conviction that we have, stock tends to peak out and go down. So whether it's in trading or investment, it's actually a huge skill set that he had. And see, you have to separate the wheat from the chaff and the good from the grain. What made him great? It was probably these abilities to be able to, pyramid higher up on a position, ability to have conviction at 300, at 3,000, 30,000, 3 lakh crore in Titan. It's such an extraordinary ability. And he had the similar skill sets in trading, and to able to segregate this two. I mean, maybe you can count them on one finger, the amount of people who can segregate trading and investing. And he was probably one of them.
And the other question is, Titan is surely the most storied investment bet from Rakesh. You tell me which stock for you really demonstrates the genius of Rakesh.
I think the first thing that I would acknowledge about Rakesh, more than the stock, see, there are many paths to Mecca. There are many ways to Nirvana, Mahalakshmi. We've all had picked great stocks. I mean, for example, RK Damani picked HDFC Bank, Nimesh Bhai picked ACC, I picked United Spirits. We all had our own picks. It's not that, any one of us had a suite of picks. What was important is the conviction that he bought with the stock. He didn't buy 10,000 shares in a bull market or 50,000 shares. He put money on the table. He bought 5% of the company when he was convinced about that, which, for example, I did not have the courage to do. Okay, so it's extraordinary to me that he could put money on the table and take the risk where it was. I'm probably a product of my middle class upbringing, so I'm scared to lose the money. He's not. He always used to say very with a lot of pride that "मैं तो दलाल street सड़क छाप रहा हूं. I'm from the streets of Dalal Street. I don't care. I came with nothing. I go with nothing. I'm fine." So he had that extraordinary ability, and the ability I alluded to you earlier, that he, bet the house on a particular idea. Once he was convinced of the idea, he didn't care what I thought, what the fund manager thought, what a foreign investor thought. He was bullish on the stock, and he would hold that stock until proven wrong. And in his career, to be honest, just so that your readers can have, your viewers can have a more 360 perspective, he got extraordinary things right. I don't need to mention that. But he got a few of them wrong also. For example, he had a company called A to Z that didn't work out. He had a company called Billcare that didn't work out. But if you look at the amount he lost in that compared to the amount he made, you understand what investing is about. He could take those losses and still compound at 45, 50% money, which is done for over 30 years. So it's not that great investors get everything right. They are humble enough to acknowledge that they made the mistakes, but they are smart enough to take the losses and move on. And I think that's what his career has taught me, to understand the shape of where markets are going. And then, I think that what I personally struggle with is the ability to make a larger bet, rather than, be happy that he got it right. It's, I think, as George Soros told it, it's, I think Rakesh personified it. He said doesn't matter whether you're right or wrong. It's how much money you make when you're right.
Correct.
And I think that's the genius of Rakesh, that he understood that, to be great, you got to do a great bet. And I think that has been a slow learner for some other people, but he clearly blazed the path for that.
What was that period like, Ramesh, when, he also had a series of wrongs, for example, bill care, and some of them which went awfully wrong because the management intent, or there was a fraud, or there was other questions, A to Z. Some of these bets, did it make him question something fundamentally? How would he draw lessons from some of his wrong bets?
His attitude was, I think, summarized by that Hindi song from Bollywood. मैं हर फिक्र को धुएं में उड़ाता चला गया. So he didn't care. I mean, he could always take the loss. Whatever he put in there, he could take the loss. That's the thing about him. He understood that it can go wrong and take the loss. And I think once he gave up on a promoter, he sold this company. He didn't care what price he was getting out, how long he held it, or what the promoter thought about it. He didn't care. He would get out of it. He always took bets that he could handle. So, market people might think that, he made such a big bet in XYZ company and that didn't work out. He's going to be lost. But he could handle that loss out there. And I think he would be momentarily disappointed. But I think the flowers in his portfolio far outweighed the weeds in his portfolio. So I think he took it in his stride and he took it well.
Sure.
His ego was hurt. I think his ego was bruised, but he took it well.
Tell me 2 or 3 personal anecdotes, the most memorable anecdotes with him.
I think I remember a particular trip. Well, I'll tell you 2 anecdotes to show how focused he was. I think that's the thing that people don't understand, that he was a 24/7 market animal. Okay, so on one particular occasion, we were at a popular watering hole in Mumbai called Jeffries, which you may be familiar with. It was one of his frequent haunts. at that time of his career. So one evening, like all, we were sitting around there shooting the breeze. And as he walked out with us, he probably had one too many. And he kind of stumbled and fell. And immediately all our friends around him picked him up, put him on a chair. Someone went to get him a glass of water. Someone went to get him a towel. And by the time he came back, he was already on the phone talking to his broker, finding out the rate for gold or Dow at that time. So, I mean, we were all worried about he had fallen, he was hurt, but he was back to doing business, not even waiting 20 minutes. And I often tell my son this, that if I go to the dentist, I kind of square up my position and say, oh, I'm going to the dentist, I might be hurt for 2 days, who knows what's happening. But not him. I mean, he went through one crisis after the other over the last 2-3 years of his life. But they never wavered in his ability to keep track of markets, whether he was in a hospital bed or whether he was in a wheelchair or whether he was in an inspection room. He always focused on the market. And the other part of the focus that I remembered, I took a trip with him to Hong Kong many years back. And I think we were out late night gambling. I think all of us were in Macau or gambling, and maybe wound up at 2:33 at night, something like that. And remember, Hong Kong is now 2.5 hours ahead of us. So when the market opened, I think at 9 o'clock, it was, I think, 11 o'clock there or something like that, or 2 hours earlier than us it opened. So I forget that the time zone. But I remember after a hard night of partying, all of us were fast asleep when the market opened. But by the time we got up and went to his room to meet him, he was already up and about on 2 hours of sleep, because that day Tata Motors was going to announce the results. So he was completely awake, completely wired, no hangover left like all of us did. So that gives you an example of his commitment and his drive to be on top of the market. So a lot of people think that speculation can drive that people like him put into it.
The harder you work, the luckier you get.
Something like that, yes.
Any other personal anecdote, touching moments?
When he started this airline, for example, I mean, it just seemed like an extraordinary bet to take at this age in his life, when he was facing ill health and you have such a big uncertain future for airlines, But he typically handles risk reward. The way I think he explained it to me is that I can lose an X amount, and that's it. I'm ring fenced to that X amount, but I can make X plus or X times something. So I like the risk reward, Ramesh, out there. So this ability to size up these odds in so many things. It was never about whether I'll make money or lose money. It is what are the odds that I lose money, and if I'm right, what are the odds? How much can I make? And I found that quite illuminating.
What is behind the airline at all? Because many fortunes have been lost in airlines. And of course, there are great successes. He also talked about them, Ryanair and Southwest, etc. But a lot of that infrastructure and what goes behind creating or replicating those business models doesn't exist in India. So was it a bet that will come through at some stage? Or was it a combination of that plus the fact that over a long period of time, crude prices should be lower? Or the fact that, he was always fascinated at some point in time with jet, the pricing power that corporate, business class airline could have compared to low cost airline. What in your view was really the bet?
While you are very correct that the cost of fuel, the cost of landing, the cost of food probably is similar for all airlines, whether you're a low cost carrier or whether you're a full service carrier, it is lost. But what people don't quite understand is that over the last 10 years or so, the cost of owning a business like airline has gone down, because what you do is you buy the aircraft and you get it leased back to you. So you get some money as a result of that, and there's no capital cost for running an airline. So if you go back and study Indigo Airlines, it wasn't started on a lot of capital. It was started by financial engineers who understood the lease and buy and lease back model. So I think my understanding, again, I'm not privy to any conversation, my understanding is that a similar model has been used in Akasa. The market for leasing right now is very good. So you don't really buy the aircraft. It's a very capital intensive business. So you buy it and lease it back, and you pay the lease rental. And in fact, you get some money when you lease it back as a differential. So you don't need a lot of money. And then whether it's through UDAN or whether it's through just general Indian growth in aviation, there will be lower cost airports. There will be, more a la carte pricing. And, he's someone who sees 5-10 years out in the future. He's not looking at it from 1 or 2 quarters in the way. So I think, again, by using his own mental model of risk reward, it makes a lot of sense to me. I think people are, and, just to add to your viewers' interest, that if truth be told, Southwest Airlines has outperformed Berkshire Hathaway over the last 30 years or so. If you look at the compounding rate of Southwest Airlines over Berkshire Hathaway, so who's to say this can't be a Ryanair out here? Maybe things will change. So if you ask me, I think he had some foresight. He got together a good, extraordinary team of managers who helped him build that. A lot of the equity has been given to them, so the interests are aligned with his. And I think he's ring-fenced himself at an amount of money that he can afford to lose. So I would be excited about it. If he had asked me, I would have put money in it. He did, but that apart, I think it's a shrewd bet. And of course, if it works, it'll be a permanent legacy to him in the air.
Ramesh, 1 or 2 final questions. One is, what are aspects of his investing style that you have tried to, I won't say emulate, but something that you have taken from him and incorporated in your own strategy? And 1 or 2 things that you have tried to emulate but find it extremely difficult to do?
Last question is pretty easy. I can't be a trader. I realized that over a period of time. I'm too middle class in my upbringing, to take the kind of loss. And I'm not focused. I mean, it's different strokes for different folks, Mahalakshmi. I think he enjoyed being 24/7 in the market. I enjoy smoking a cigar. I enjoy spending time with my grandchildren. I enjoy traveling. I cannot be 24/7 focused on the market. It's not within me to be 24/7. So I realized very early on in life that I'm not going to be a trader, and I accepted that. So to my regret, I would enjoy making money as trading, and who wouldn't? But I realized I'm not. So it's extraordinarily hard. See, the great people make it look easy, but it's almost impossible to copy them. I mean, they make it look effortless. It's almost impossible to copy them. But one thing I wish I could do better was when I have a good idea, I can't use the word they use in Dalal Street or Wall Street, the back of the truck. Buy it, in a quantity that would hurt me.
Right.
Trouble is that's easier said than done. And the ability to distinguish a great idea from a so-so idea comes to the forefront in that. And, that's, what can I say, still a work in progress. I think it's just be very disappointed in me that I didn't put enough in my best idea. And, well, I'm disappointed in myself for that. But
And
that's just
you've
the way
had
it is.
several of those best ideas. And
I have had, I can't complain. I mean, we all pray to God that we not money, but for opportunity. And I had the opportunity. Now, how you take that mud and fashion it into a pot, he taught us how to do it. I made a bowl out of it. He made, a jar out of it. So that's the difference between good and great, I guess.
What are moments with Rakesh that you're going to continue to cherish? And what are the aspects that you're going to miss most about him?
We were a part of a very close group. We used to call it a kiddie group, which Rakesh established. There were first about 7 couples in it, then there were 11 couples in it. And I think it's been an extraordinary journey for all of us over the last 30 years. So we celebrated trips with each other. We celebrated each other's birthdays, anniversary. For a while before COVID and bad health took over, we would try and meet once a month somewhere. So over time, we spent, lots of happy moments together. And Rakesh was always the most talkative. I mean, we know that. He would always dominate the conversation, be the life of the party. But I think what happened is because of his extraordinary accomplishment, we would give him the deference, because we realized that, he is one of the most successful investors. And, he does deserve deference. So we were happy to give him the deference. So we've had a lot of fun-filled evenings, either just the men meeting together or the families meeting together, or sometimes, like, for example, when he celebrated his 50th birthday, he took us for a knockout party in Mauritius, including family and including children. I'll always remember that gay celebration of his life in Mauritius. It was an extraordinary moment for us. I think before you wind down, if I just read a poem that I thought reflected my thoughts about him well. So I'll share those 4 lines with you about him, which I wrote down. It says, Rakesh, your memory is our keepsake with which we'll never part. God has you in his keeping. We will always have you in our heart. R.I.P. my friend Rakesh.
Thank you so much, Ramesh.